Good morning, welcome to Morning Outlook. This is Kim speaking on Monday the 19th of August. Okay, so I've had a week out in the market, so well, obviously they were bound to move whilst I was away. Nice move down I see on the euro dollar there. Is it going to find a bounce here? Well, possibly. I'm just looking at what's going on here. It's running to round about the bodies there on Friday. It's got a weekly pivot above, which is a natural draw often of price action. What would make me interested? Well, there are some buy orders sitting above the 4-hourly 8 here, around about 11.04 the buy orders, or 05 rather, the buy orders start. So there's some net buy orders sitting above there. May see price, and there's weak sell orders sitting above there. May see price push up to that towards that weekly. Although there's little in the news to sort of drive it up too much. To the upside, so we'll see how it pans out. Looking from a 60-minute point of view, sitting all over its daily pivot at the moment. Really needs to break above that 60-minute 50 to be of interest, maybe towards that weekly pivot. There's an opportunity. Really hasn't touched that 60-50 for some time. It's running sideways. It's really lacking of any real clues here apart from the downward trend that sits there. So maybe if it's not looking to push through the 50, or even if it does run into the 50, a sell below the lows here may see it run back down towards Friday's low there in the S1, which would be quite a half decent target. So in its lower highs, lower lows that are running through here at the moment. So that's where we are there. Just one thing to bear in mind, I should mention that there's absolutely no holidays, no news today. No more holidays allowed either today. Okay, no news today, so we're left purely down to technicals. Let's have a look at the pound, looking from a daily perspective first. And I was looking at this a moment ago and I was just wondering, is it going to double top at this point? Is it going to roll a little bit? It's got targets below the daily weekly pivots, are both sitting below at the moment. Has got that potential to roll over. It's pitched into Friday's highs sort of territory here, not quite as high as there. It could pitch up a little bit further. My line in the sand is drawn on here at the moment for the downside. I'm really looking at the 60-minute trend line here. If this starts breaking, well, I'm more likely to be looking for that probably the weekly pivot. It's already tested the 50. If you can, broken through, tested it at least once, so it may provide a bit of support. But if we start seeing it break down here, I'd rather be on the shorter side. There was news out over the weekend that would have expected it to, in some respects, see it roll over, but there may be buyers coming into this market. All the news so far has been quite negative, and there's nothing really to suggest any other way. Corbyn's deal, etc., certainly doesn't look like a goer in any sense. But anything that's there's maybe in a slight divergence. Let's have a look on the dailies there. Not really. Just looking to see if there's any divergence on the signal line there. That was lower on the low there. But it does have a monthly pivot above. I'm just looking to whether this daily 34. So I'm going to stay out of this unless it breaks my trigger to the downside there. This morning, and so that's really what I'm looking for. I may have a slightly better trigger this morning at some point here, but it's a little bit overbought on my signal. I certainly don't want to be buying it to the long side here at the moment. My preference is to the downside, but as I say, I may be patient. Sorry, long on the pound there, but just getting my eye back into these markets. Sometimes it takes a day or two to get the pulse of these markets. Certainly need something for the pulse of this dollar yen here. Dollar yen is didn't really miss too much. It was selling off the as I left on the Friday, Monday, Tuesday last week. It sort of picked. It was a buy side on the US dollar. What Trump said over the weekend, he's actually made it a buy side on the dollar generally. I mean, he's suggested how strong the economy is and everything else, and suggested there's things that they can do, but we'll see. But for now, not the easiest signals coming through on the dollar yen. It's pretty chopping sidewards. Maybe there's some swing longs running through it, but for now I'm sitting there looking at the weekly pivots below slightly. Just come down to 60-minute, but really don't like the price action that's sitting there. It's consolidated. I'd rather it just give me a sort of a bit more of a clue. There's a sort of wedge running through there on the 4 hourlies, and let's see how it breaks from that wedge. I'm not going to be dashing into that. Aussie dollar stagnated, consolidated, whatever you like to call it. It's not going very far. Didn't miss anything last week on the Aussie, but it's one which we could see further interest rate cuts, of course. It's since it mentioned that it's rallied and it's held, but sidewards price action in this market. And coming back to the dailies, I'm just thinking, when's it going to break down next? It did have a monthly pivot untouched above, but my preference would be on the downside still there. There's really no clues I can see here. Maybe let's just have a look at the more themed. Is there any clues across there? Maybe a bit of divergence across these lows last week, but it's just pretty much running sidewards and not giving too much clue away, so preference would be to the downside on that. Okay, let's have a look on the Canadian dollar there then. Canadian dollar on the dailies, it put a bearish pivot swing in here. It's dancing around near its weekly pivot here. I'm looking what else there's not too much more. Again, these markets are not particularly clear. The Canadian dollar, fundamentally, it wasn't doing too bad. Technically, well, it's softened up here, and you've got the sort of higher lows running through there. Not quite higher high here. If we start breaking, we may to these recent lows. Well, it's confirming a lower high, and we may see more correction to the downside. But it's certainly not looking the best at the moment either way. It's again in that chop zone, and it's a bit of a holiday zone at the moment, not giving us too much, not giving too much away. Okay, so a little there, as I say, no news due out today, absolutely no news. That's about it. So I hope you have a great one. I'll be back on later, and I'm going to do the big picture where we look at what's happening in the wider scope of things, looking at the fundamentals, etc., for the week ahead. So we'll look at that later, but have a great day. Bye for now.